What's going on, guys? Rodrigo here with another episode of Asheville Real Estate News. Really excited for this conversation. A fellow Latino here, actually living in Mexico, has a business here in the U.S. For ISAs or inside sales agents. So we were able to talk a little bit about, living remotely, the transition from working in Microsoft into real estate, and then building a company that supports the real estate industry. Talked about sales. Man, we kind of went all over the place. Great conversation. So the conversation was with Gus Castro. He's the owner president of Power ISA. We'll have some of that information in the show notes and talk a little bit about that near the end of the show as well. So tune on in if you're interested in sales, conversion rates, and things of that nature. This is going to be a great show for you. As always, thanks so much for watching, tuning in, and see you guys on the next one. Take care. Well, Gustavo, thanks so much for joining the show. Always fun to have another Latino on the show, man. So thank you.
Hey, I appreciate that, Rodrigo. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so it's really cool when you get to have a show with somebody, well, we've never met in person, but you're also like halfway across the country, and it's just kind of perfect for like the times that we're in where everything's changing remote. And we were talking a little bit about like, how do you like be able to live in one place, work in another. So do you mind kind of just sharing your thought process and your experience to get to what you're doing now?
Okay. Hey, love that. Will do. So, I'm originally from Mexico, born and raised Mexico. Mm-hmm. I moved to the U.S. When I was 24 to work at Microsoft. I was an engineer in Mexico. Microsoft was under a huge crunch. Well, probably even now, more so now, looking for talent everywhere, right? Yeah. All the startups were stealing all the talent, so they had to go all over the world to find folks. I was one of those guys that brought over, and I moved to Washington State. So from sunny Mexico to Washington, Seattle, a little bit of a change, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, and I worked there for about 10 years in Microsoft. I met my wife in Mexico, brought her to Seattle. That was a big change. And she got licensed and became a real estate agent. And at the beginning, I thought, yeah, it's a cool hobby. She should have something to do. That's interesting, because I didn't come from like an entrepreneurial family or from like a sales background or anything like that. My wife would just naturally and she came from a family of like fourth generation entrepreneurs. I mean, she's like, had it in the blood, right?
Oh, so I'm like, quick question for you on that. Like, I know in Colombia, like everybody there is always selling something. Like you negotiate everything anyways. Like it doesn't matter where you're at. It's like at McDonald's and you're like, well, can we do this?
so my in-laws in Mexico, I mean, they're both trained doctors. So check this. They're doctors. They have a profession. Mm-hmm. On the back of their house, backed up to a busy corner. Yeah. The back of their house was a diaper store. Like they had a store in the house. Right? Yeah. Like, hey, man, it's high traffic, bro. Yeah. There's money to
capitalize,
be made, right? Yeah. So Mexico is very entrepreneurial. Yeah. Like the people are very entrepreneurial, very it's like that. I'll be honest, my family wasn't like that. There's always an exception, right? My wife's family was 100% like that.
Gotcha.
Right? Even the professionals had side gigs. Even now, most professionals in Mexico have side gigs. They've got some kind of side hustle that they're doing. So she came from that, and she was doing real estate. Killing it, man. Rookie of the year, just like a fish in water, just selling homes, making deals happen, just keeping it busy. And I was like, man, and I would help her out. I got licensed in 2010. I was still at Microsoft. I help her out, do this, do that. And, I have, I'm a people person, I had got the gift of gab. I can talk to folks, English and Spanish. I would move in those both communities. Right. And, I realized, man, I'm having much more fun working with my wife on the nights and weekends than I am at Microsoft. And I've been there for 10 years. So I had built up some equity. I'm not even going to tell you the kind of package I had to walk away from, because they tie you in, man. They want you to stay for the long haul. So I said, you know what? Life's too short, man. I'm going to jump in and go all in real estate. That was 2013 when I did that. Yeah, so a little bit under 10 years in the company. And I went all in real estate. So we started a real estate business, killing it, top 10% in the MLS, 3 years. So you're doing well, doing great. However, my long-term plan was to go back to Mexico. So that was, hey, make some investments, start a business, figure something out that I could do from home, like stream working from home. This is way before COVID, right? This is like, I was way ahead of the curve. And one of the things that I discovered that I thought, hey, this could be something I can actually do from outside the US was the ISA model, inside sales agent. For the folks that don't know what that is, in real estate, there's a bunch of roles. You've got the agent, you've got the administrative help. Part of the leverage you can get as an agent is having someone on the phone. The hardest thing for agents to do, and investors, same thing, man. It's still pretty difficult for them, is to figure out how to be on the phone and get back to people and close those leads and close those appointments and get those deals signed, right? So that part of it is one of the things you can leverage as an agent, right? So I did a lot of hiring, and I did that role in Seattle, and I said, man, I bet I could find some talented people in Mexico to do this, right? And at the beginning, I didn't know it was going to be like people that came back from the U.S., expats living in Mexico. I didn't know. I just knew there was talent in Mexico, and I could probably recruit them, right? So, because team building and process is something I learned in America, and I was pretty good at that. Right?
I'm sure, especially engineer minded, right? You're like getting to get these details, and it's going to run A to Z the same way every time. And yes, let's go.
Absolutely. And as an engineer, and that's as an entrepreneur, that's a blessing and a curse, because you can get stuck. I can get stuck on details all day long, right? So I always balance myself out with someone to like, hey man, action oriented. Let's get this thing done, right? So 100%. I'm definitely in that mindset, right? So moved to Mexico, back to Mexico, end of 2015, that range. And I started a new company, Power ISA, which is what I'm running right. It's been almost 5 years since we started that. And we provide, telemarketers, outbound telemarketers, inbound lead nurturers, and, appointment setters for real estate, investors, real estate agents, real estate teams, loan officers. And, there was there still is a huge need for that. We service 350 different campaigns across the U.S. and Canada, every single time zone, almost every U.S. state, pretty much almost every province in Canada too. We've got some kind of campaign going, either a Facebook campaign or a real estate team that we're working for. So that's it, man. That's how, I kind of figured out a way to add a ton of value, something the market really needed, and something that only I could do. That's a key difference, right? I was at Microsoft. I was just another,
cog in the wheel, basically, right?
Cog in the wheel, cog in the machinery, right? 100%. And I realized that real estate, I was much better at that. It kind of, brought more talents of mine. And this specific role within real estate is one of those things like, man, 10 people in the world can do this, and I'm one of the people that has kind of that, foot in each country, kind of bicultural sense. And I can actually put this kind of a company together. So I found like my niche. Not gonna let me, your original question was, hey, how did you kind of set it up where you could kind of work from outside the US? I found something only I could do, and that you could actually do outside the US. Yeah.
So man, I think I always find it super interesting to hear about the stories and the transitions from going from, what most people would look at and be like, that's a solid dream job. Like, why would you walk away from, you said like, we don't need to get into the numbers, right? But it sounds like they were doing everything that they could to motivate you and convince you to stay. And you said no to that because you were looking for or chasing for this other thing. Let's call it, I don't know, freedom. What was it? Like, what was it that you felt? What was the emotional appeal that real estate was giving you that you weren't getting at Microsoft? Because it obviously wasn't about the money. So it must have been a mental or emotional pull. What was it?
Well, what it was the challenge and the opportunity. And then again, I was at a point in my career where I was ready for a change. I was thinking of either changing companies, changing roles, because I was not being challenged. I was not, let me rephrase that. Microsoft is a tough place to work at, right? There's always something super hard for you to do. I was not motivated to take on that challenge. There was really hard problems to solve, like ridiculous, right? But I was like, I
don't want to solve them.
I could go do that and kind of slog around. And just, you gotta, at some point in your life, kind of, I was at that age, about 30, where you're like, okay, man, like, what am I doing? Right. Am I going to, double down on this career and like make it to, and that, in Microsoft and in high tech, it's about, the corporate high tech is about the ladder levels. You want to go up the level. You want to go up the corporate ladder. You want to make it to a certain level. And, it's gamification of your career. So, and some people go all in and they love that. And they're like, man, this is that. And for me, I'm like, going to the next level. Oh, probably. This is like a 50-50 chance I'll make it. After that, there's like a 1% chance I'll make it. Because again, it's a very competitive environment. And I assessed myself and my skills. Is that what I want to do? Is that really what I'm going to be doing the next 10 years? Going to the next level. it was not appealing to me. And at some point, you kind of have to be honest with yourself and make it happen.
Yeah.
But again, my parents are from Mexico. For them, it was their dream that their kid was an engineer at Microsoft. It was like, oh, my God, what are you doing, Gus? What's going on? Are you okay?
Yeah.
Are things going well? Did you get fired? It's like, hey,
what happened? Yeah.
What happened, right? And I'm like, this just was not interesting. I told them after I left, by the way.
Yeah.
I did not have this conversation
ahead of time.
You guys think I should leave, this super awesome 6-figure cushy job?
Yeah.
Why
would you? Yeah, it's funny. So when I got into real estate, I walked away from working at a law firm that I was working at as a legal assistant, and for where I was in life, early 20s, like doing really good by a lot of like my parents' standards of what I should be doing. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to go do that and start investing in houses. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, you have no idea. I'm like, well, I don't either, but like, it makes sense to me. I don't know why. And it was definitely a lot of that like pushback of like, why are you leaving that? I was like, I don't even know definitively, but it's time. Like, I just need to do it. So, it's funny that the similarities there, but you mentioned working with your wife and then definitely get into the sales and everything. But I'm always curious about people who work with their spouses. Like, what was like the ups or the downs or the good, the bad, like any insight to people who work together as far as like, without getting yourself in trouble, of course, right?
Yeah. That's a really good question, Rodrigo. That's because, the husband-wife dynamic is like a thing in real estate.
Yeah.
This is like a
lot very of popular. Yeah.
I don't want to say it was a disaster. I do want to say that it was way harder than we thought it would be. Way harder than we thought it would be. Because, there's one thing where you're like, this is your side hustle. You're having fun. It's like nights and weekends. When it's like all day, every day,
day out,
real estate, we're commission only. I mean, you're always working, right? You're always working. And for me, I had never had a job where if I worked a few more hours, the hourly rate on those extra hours was like $500 an hour, $250 an hour, right? And so I was like, well, I'll do one more offer. I'll do one more showing. I'll take on one more appointment. Because I was, it was good upside, right? I had never made as much money as I made those 3 years that I went full time into real estate. However, turning things off and going back to regular life was like super hard. And it just got it put a lot of strain on the relationship. So we stopped doing that. I think right before we left for Mexico. We're like, I'm going to try this ISA thing. And it should be easier. I'm glad you asked that question because that was part of the motivation to do something different, right? From real estate sales. Because you can make a ton of money in real estate sales, but if you get divorced and you're like, and I know a lot of really successful divorced agents, so no hate on that, no judgment. But for me, it was like it was non-starter.
Yeah, it was more of like you're faced with a choice and you're like, no, I like, yes, the money there is good, but like, how do we keep this in place and like search that out? So
100%. And some people figure it out and power to them.
Right.
They're very compatible, even in the work environment. And like, for us, it was hard, man. It was really, really good.
No, I can't even imagine. It'd be, that'd be challenging. So let's talk sales. Like, so I think that, we talked a little bit off camera and just talking about, I think, when you talk about sales and marketing and things of that nature, it really kind of highlights, and this is like popular in the self-development world, is like, you make that 1% change. And I think that that's, for me, I've seen it the most impact me personally is when you do make that like 1 or 2% change on something of work that you're already doing and you close 1% more or you sell 1% more, you get 10x the benefit without doing extra work. So what is it that you guys do as ISAs, or how is your process of like understanding that and then being like, wow, we have to duplicate, triplicate, et cetera, to do more of that, increase your conversions?
Okay, no, great, really good question. So I'm going to approach this like from the investor standpoint because agents, it's very similar, but there are some key differences, right? So as investors, you're looking for deal flow, right? At the end of the day, it's about finding deals because if you have deals, you can find the money. When you're starting out, it doesn't seem that way. But once you're in the environment, if you're any good at networking, if you're any good at getting yourself out there, if you have deals, you will figure the rest of it out.
Correct.
The name of the game is deal flow. Similar to real estate, where the name of the game is lead generation and finding buyers. Same thing. You will figure other things out if you have no money, but you have deal flow. You can wholesale, you can get partners, you can do so the world opens up. So lead generation is definitely the name of the game. That's the thing you want to focus on first. So as an investor, you've got a couple options, right? When you're getting started, you can either have time or you have money. So you can actually, you can do driving for dollars, you can do door knocking, you can do bandit signs. I'm not sure if they're allowed in Asheville, but you can do bandit signs in some places. Or they're not, right? So you want to make sure you're doing some kind of lead generation activity. You always, and that's something you're doing all the time, all day, every day. So you've got this collection of different lead generation activities. One aspect of those, not the only one, but one important one is online, right? I mean, that's another way you can generate leads. Bandit signs work, yellow letters work, door knocking works. All these things work. Driving for dollars works. All these things work. It's just how much time or money do you have? It's really a question of that. What's at your disposal? The more experience you get, the more deals you're able to land, more of these options open up, right? Even as the same thing as a realtor, you start with open houses because they're pretty much essentially free to set up, and you'll have a potential to talk to motivated buyers, right? High potential. On the investor side, a little bit different. You're never going to have an event where like motivated sellers are going to show up, right? But you want to put yourself in a situation where they can see you, know of you, or you can know of them. So, of all the options I mentioned, online is a really versatile one, right? Online has a huge opportunity. So you were talking about what's that 1 or 2% difference from door knocking to online. There's a huge percent difference on at least efficiency and time and conversion rate, right? But again, you got to start somewhere, right? Maybe networking is the way you start, right? And then you kind of move up to the higher converting activities. Then, list buying, right? List creating, creating a list. Because there's a lot of data out there. There's tons of data out there. What are those data points that can help you create a list that you're going to call, door knock, mail to, market to online? You can actually do some neat tricks. You can try at least neighborhood wise, target certain areas. You can do less of that now than a few years ago, but definitely you can also focus some of those efforts. So first off is that lead generation source, because they convert very differently, right? You're calling the phone book versus targeting people on Google or Facebook. Google and Facebook, in my experience, and this is what I'm talking about, is one of the best ways to invest money, right? Because you're able to do a lot of targeting. You're able to leverage the Facebook algorithm. Facebook, has a lot of information about people. I don't think people realize how much information they have.
It's insane. The level of focus or detail you can get on audiences it's really incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Due to some recent changes last year, you're not able to directly target folks on demographics, on income, ethnicity, or even neighborhood wise that much anymore. However, and this is what people are playing around with last year. Investors are still having massive success on Facebook because what they're doing now is that I don't know if you do a lot of Facebook or not, Rodrigo, but their ad copy went from 1 paragraph to 8 paragraphs in some of those ads. Because from my perspective, they're trying to feed the algorithm kind of what they want, right? Like, hey, man, attention, homeowners, are you going through a divorce or a medical issue or a COVID layoff or and they bust out all these potential situations.
Try to capture it all.
To see, hey, Facebook, serve me up somebody that's going through this. Serve me up someone that's going through distress. Serve me up someone that needs money now. Need cash now. Close in 7 days. These advertisers are trying to get people's attention, and they're trying to get Facebook's help, right? To kind of figure out kind of who's who. And the algorithm has gotten scary good. Very scary, very good, right? I'm not trying to judge if that's good or bad. I'm just saying that's where we're at right now in 2020. So I've seen people really leverage that. So I see a big difference in conversion, the folks that are still doing kind of the broad net door knocking prospecting versus the folks that are leveraging tools like Facebook, right? So big difference. And Google, even more so, because you can actually target people that are searching for, hey, how much is my home worth? Hey, how can I get cash fast? Hey, Zillow instant offer. I mean, people you can directly serve up ads to people that are very targeted as well.
Yeah, I think the online thing is something we've been playing around with for a while now. I think it's definitely seems like it's a harder medium or avenue to crack. than like say direct mail or door knocking, right? Like it's like door knocking, like you're knocking on the door you're wanting to knock on, right? Like very few times are you like trying to knock on 123 Main Street and you end up on a different door, right? But with like online, because there is so much information, it's definitely been something we've struggled with. Like when we've struggled with it is like, well, are we targeting the right people or are we not? Like, did we why are they reaching out to us? Like, that's not who we want to buy a house from or whatever. So it's been a little bit challenging, but I think it's way more scalable than door knocking or arguably even direct mail because you have everybody and you can run ads all the time, right? You're not waiting for so we really like that. But you get leads. And so I guess that was a long-winded way to say, how is the process and like, how do you guys make sure that you're maximizing your lead volume, right? Because you get 100 people come through an ad and they're all obviously not all created equal. What sort of systems or processes have you all seen to sift through the volume of leads that you generate to focus on the ones that really need to be served?
100%. And there's 3 things that I recommend. Once you get to that stage, you've got your lead generation, source figured out. And actually this applies to anything, not just Facebook. This applies to multiple.
Yeah, agreed. It doesn't matter how you got your leads once they're in your funnel. They're
coming into a funnel. Yeah. They're coming in. So there's 3 things we recommend that everyone should do, whether you have an ISA, you're an agent or an investor. Number 1, you need to focus on speed. There has to be something in your system that gets back to them. You would be surprised how many people have zero automation in this aspect. How people don't make phone calls within the first 48 hours, 24 hours, 72 hours. They don't make that phone call. They let that lead stay stale. And there's a bunch of statistics out there. Just understand that 50% of leads get little to no attention. And that by little attention, I mean maybe 1 touch, maybe 2 touches, and that's it, right? So 50% of leads are just not being serviced. So having that speed aspect. If you have this is your side hustle, then use automation, leverage automation, right? Get that automatic text going out. And there's a bunch of ways to send that, at least that.
Right.
And then if you're able to get that phone call out there right away, because you want to have the text message is to try to get them onto a conversation. Right. Number 1 is speed. Focus on speed because that does matter. If you're able to catch that person while they're still browsing Facebook on their phone, because that's where most people are going to see your ads now, it's powerful. You've got them in that same mindset. They were thinking about something that made them click on that ad. You want to keep them in kind of that mind share. Number 1. Number 2 is, okay, great. That's awesome. You're super fast. That's great. There's still 80%, 90% of people you're not going to contact, even after that first, second, third touch.
Those are the most annoying.
Those are the most annoying, and that's the most common situation, right? So what we've seen is, on average, this is a national average, it takes us about 14 attempts, 60 days to talk to the majority of those leads, 50% plus 1. And it's a really simple number. And again, that's going to vary a lot. But I tell people, if you haven't worked that lead for 60 days, you're not getting your money's worth. You haven't got the max out of it. And I'm not calling them every day. That's not what I mean. I'm saying 14 touches. Half of those should be phone calls. That's my recommendation. At least 50% of those should be phone. Get on the phone, call folks, leave a voicemail. Especially when these are inbound leads, they came to you. There's definitely something there in the back of their mind that they want to talk about. So have some kind of follow-up plan in place. So be fast. Try them enough times. That's the second step. Try them enough time. Have some kind of follow-up plan that you can follow. And even if folks are part-time realtors, part-time investors, you've got to make some time every day to move the ball forward on your lead follow-up. It doesn't matter what time it is. That's what I tell folks. What's the best time? They tell, "Whoa, Gus, what's the best time to call leads?" The time you're actually going to do it, right? So just sit down and have a way to move them forward, either because you're using a CRM. So if you're paying for leads, you better pay for CRM. And, if you got some kind of, paid lead gen, if you put the money to build a list, you put the money to buy those online leads, you better have the money to get that CRM, because that is really the only way you're going to stay organized with this kind of stuff. It's really hard otherwise. I used to have my database in Excel guy, right? So it gets unwieldy very quickly, right? So and CRMs are so inexpensive nowadays. Like you can get a decent one for $10 a month, right? Yeah. So put everything in a CRM, keep yourself organized on those follow-ups. 60 days, 14 touches. Before that, you're leaving money on the table. Yeah, I guarantee you're leaving money on the table.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. What's your favorite follow-up method outside of calling? Like, so we call, we email, we text, we send mail out. Like if somebody comes inbound and we can't get a hold of them, we'll send them a letter. Like, hey, you you submitted some information. We never heard from you. Like, are you fake or are you real? Like, what's happening here? Is there anything else that you would recommend, or what's your opinion on that?
I'm a little biased because I look for massively scalable solutions, right? Because we're servicing hundreds upon hundreds of clients. Yeah. If you have the time and you have the information to send them a personalized letter, that's going to stand out. Yeah. That's like, they're not going to expect that, right? Mm-hmm. And if you actually have like a handwritten element to that, it's like, what is this? I mean, people might have never gotten one of those, like a personal, in their lives. It's possible, right? That's why
we do it.
It is 2020, right? Yeah. So, maybe things are different in Nashville. In Seattle, no one gets any letters anherre, right? They are from like the bank. Right. So that's definitely going to stand out. It's going to look different. So if you the more personalized and if you can go non-scalable, do that.
Right.
Do that. Do things that don't scale, right? That's a great way to do it. We find that text message and phone call is very effective and very scalable. So I'm a little bit of on a different mindset in that respect. We don't do email anymore. The main thing is because we're focusing on conversions in the next 60 to 90 days. Email is more of a nurturing tool. It's not very, and we've measured this. We looked at 500 appointments we set. Less than 1% were originated through an email interaction.
Wow, interesting.
500 appointments, right? And 80% were phone call conversions, 20% were text message conversions, and less than 1%. And that makes sense. I mean, who's gonna go on an appointment off an email? It's a little bit of a different mindset.
Yeah, it's
nurturing though. If you have a funnel,
why not? Right?
Definitely be a part of it. I have a newsletter myself, right? For clients, for prospects, for all these things, and it works. But I'm playing the long game with that newsletter. I'm not looking for conversions in the next 60 to 90 days at all. So
what's the third thing? Right. So we said speed, the follow-up plan. What's the third thing?
And this is the third thing is the one, at least in real estate, investors, it's more of a mixed bag. But in real estate, the third step is the one people mess up the most. Mm-hmm. That is, okay, you're super fast. You've got that follow-up plan. So now you get the person on the phone. What are you going to say to them? Right. So you got to have what you're going to say. You got to have it down.
So is this a script?
It's the script, 100%, right? 100%. So, and in real estate, I always get into fights online about, hey, should people use scripts or not? In real estate, where we're all professional salespeople, people question whether you should use scripts. It's the craziest thing ever, right? I mean, people say, oh, no, it sounds so fake. I'm like, well, you can sound very prepared, or you can sound kind of fake. Which one? I say no to both. Yeah. You shouldn't sound either fake or unprepared.
Right.
Sound real and prepared. And the only way I've seen to do that, sustainably, scalably, reliably, is by having at least an outline of what you're going to say.
That's what I was going to say. I think with scripts, it doesn't necessarily mean that you go word for word, but it's that you follow a general framework of like, okay, these are like the 5 questions I always ask. I typically ask them in this order. That can be a script as long as you're teasing things out in the same way, because then it gives you the ability to anticipate or really listen to what they're saying, because you're not thinking about what you're going to say next and things like that. At least that's the way I've used scripts, and it's been very helpful for me.
Yeah. So I'm glad you use scripts. I think a lot of the top investors, they need scripts. You're talking to people that are in kind of a delicate situation, right? So for example, I'm going to go into investor mode. When we're calling a lead that's coming off an ad from Motivated Seller ad, one of the first questions, hey, this is Gus. That's how you clicked on our ad. Yeah. I just want to call and learn a little bit more about your situation, and then shut up. Right. Like, stop deleting them anywhere. Stop to ask. I'd like to learn more about your situation. What's your situation?
Yeah.
Let them, because first of all, remember that I told you that ad has like 18 different things that can make you qualify as a motivated seller. Mm-hmm. I don't really care which one of those it is. I don't know which one of those it is. Yeah. Why don't you tell me what the situation is? And then, yes, they're qualifying questions for sure, like the condition of the property, your motivation level, all these things you want to have answered. Mm-hmm. But at the first level, you want to have questions that are going to connect you to them as a person. Like, and when I train my team about talking to motivated sellers, it's about empathy, right? Genuine interest, curiosity, empathy, because we can really help some of these folks, right? Mm-hmm. We can offer them, and again, this is the ISA, it's frontline communication. We just say we want to offer them some options. We don't go into offer mode or anything like that. Yeah. But we tell them, hey, I would love to have you talk to my boss, Rodrigo, because he'd love to go over some options with you, right? Or maybe it's a cash offer ad. Hey, you know what? really prepare an offer, I got to go have Rodrigo, go talk to you. Look, when's a good time for him to show up today at 5 or tomorrow at 4, So there's definitely a close to the script. There's an intro to the script. There's qualifying questions. And the way you ask these questions matters, man. Because some of these people might be going through like a probate situation, death in the family, illness in the family, someone lost their job. I found that the more you're able to approach it with curiosity and empathy, they're going to open up and let a little bit more out, right? They're going to be willing to communicate a little bit more with you.
Right.
You talked about those percentages, right? You talked about, hey, what kind of moves the needle a little bit? Doing your best attempt at showing genuine interest and empathy is going to move the needle a little bit more, more. It's not going to be a deal every single time, not at all. But it moves the needle a little bit more, and they might be willing to give you a little bit more information than they gave the last guy that called, or the last guy that mailed them, or the last, because in this market, this guy's getting bombarded, right? I mean, there's a lot of investors out there. There's a lot of people looking for different places to put their money. I don't know what the market is like in Asheville, but in Seattle, it's going insane.
I think in Asheville, we definitely have a very active market right now. I have my reservations about what's happening, but the one thing you can't really deny is that things are moving very quickly. And it's definitely a seller's market for sure right now. No questions asked about that. I think going, in on that note, I think it's like, look, if you've generated 100 leads, and I'd love to hear your interest on this, right? It's like, is it more important to try to go from generating 100 leads to 200 leads, or closing 2% or 3% more of the 100 leads you've already generated?
Oh, really good question. Okay, so let me make sure I rephrase that correctly. Do you want to go like cast a wider net, or work some of these leads a little bit better?
Right. Yeah. Do you improve your closing process, or do you just create a bigger funnel? I guess would be the way to ask that. Yeah.
I think number one is about the funnel, because it's usually easier to fix, and you don't have to spend a lot more money to get more deals out of the leads you already have. Right. So if you have a process you feel good about, then I would try casting a wider net, because your funnel's broke. It's the leaky bucket problem, right? You put more water into a leaky, but you're not really going to convert a ton more deals. So that you can approach it that way. Another thing you can do is also, we've seen people have a ton of success on this, is make it's like an application, make it look like an application process. It's not a lead form. It's not just, hey, give me information. It's like, hey, let's see if you qualify for like an, all cash offer or whatever the pitch is. Let's see if you qualify. Have them apply. Yeah. Have them answer 7, 10, 15 questions. So instead of 100 leads, you get 50.
Right.
But guess what, man? Those 50 are not wrong numbers, are not, people are never going to pick up. I mean, so your cost per lead will go up, definitely. And we've seen this, measure this. Your cost per acquisition is going to go down.
Yeah.
Your cost per acquisition goes down.
Yeah, I know that it's really, people talk about this all the time, so this is not like anything new, but the most important number, I think, from listening and talking to other people, it's your cost per deal is more important than your cost per lead or your marketing budget or anything like that, right? It's like, it doesn't really matter how many leads you generate if you're not closing any of them. And it doesn't matter if you're generating leads at $2 a lead. Wouldn't you prefer to generate leads at $300 a lead and close every single one? Yeah. So, wow, yeah, we've gone over a lot there. So what are you focusing on now for your company then, right? Like, you're talking about things that you do, things that you believe in, marketing and stuff like this. How do you apply it from a business to business component when you move out of the, business to consumer side of things, right? Because you're in Mexico, you're trying to build company in the US, live in Mexico, have that both dream lifestyle. Like, how's that going? And what's next on the horizon for you with that?
Yeah, well, great question. So for us, it's about doubling down on real estate. And I actually had this is funny because I had a conversation. This was actually not a while now ago. This was like end of June with Gary Vaynerchuk. And people, aren't super familiar with him. He's like a marketing guru, like a big guy, right? If you're into online, he's like big there. And I actually asked him this question. Gary, I was able to be on one of his shows. Gary, would you double down on real estate, or would you start looking at other niches as a growth strategy, right? Yeah. And the guy's like, both. It's like, why are you, this is like, it's a ridiculous question. Yeah. If you have the talent in real estate, double down on real estate and look into other niches. Like, if you're going to grow, right? Like, why are you like artificially stopping yourself, right? And he's big about the advantages and disadvantages of focus, right? Like focusing on stuff. So he says, hey, and we talked about it, and he goes, hey, there's very similar niches to real estate where they have the same problem as real estate, right? So that's one of the things we're doing. We're doubling down on real estate. We're talking to real estate agents, investors, all kinds of folks to grow the business. But also we're piloting solarly. So we're piloting, HVAC. We're piloting, I think, insurance as well,
so
right?
Just lead generation in general.
Lead generation in general, trying to make that leap. It's not super easy because, our strength is real estate. Our DNA is real estate. But we're telling them, hey, we know how to convert leads and how to add value to this process. So that is one of the big things we're definitely doing to continue that growth. Yeah,
that makes sense. How was it with Gary Vee? I've got his shoes back there, clouds and dirt.
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
that was great, man. That's a whole other conversation. How we got on that show. Hustle. Like Gary said.
Yeah.
Hustle. Like, it's the Tea with Gary Vee show. It's a college show. People should check it out. I was able to nab a spot on that show. That was wild. It was like a 3-month effort worth it. 100%. Definitely love that. Great.
I'm a big Gary Vee fan. That's the reason that we started this podcast to begin with. He's like, create content, just don't ask questions, create content. I'm like, I don't want to create content. Okay, fine. Awesome. It's been a lot of fun to kind of just go in and haven't looked back with it. So, Gus, any final thoughts as we're wrapping up here, as far as what's your opinion on what's happening in the market? You get to see so many different markets. Are people optimistic? Are people scared, pessimistic? What's happening? What's the sentiment?
Yeah, it's a very strange market, Rodrigo. It's a really weird one because both for my clients and clients of theirs, I'm seeing two extremes of this, right? People going out of business because of the pandemic, because of these lockdowns, because of the crunch people feel. And I'm also seeing people having their best year on record. Which is crazy. How can both things be happening at the same time? But they are, right? They are. You've got all these weird, and I'm this is just reality, right? I don't have an opinion on it, whether it's good or bad, but I'm seeing buyers flooding into these markets because of interest rates, because not everyone lost their job, right? And people seeing big opportunities. A lot of resistance from sellers because of everything that's going on. They're not sure if they can find another property. They're not sure if they can make it happen. Just a lot of pressure on the inventory. Investors trying to make, try to find, distressed seller situations that they can add value to. It's just a lot of pressure on inventory overall. But that is real. People going out of business and people having the best year ever. I've never seen that. And I went through 2008. I remember seeing that from the real estate lens. My wife was there. That was insane. Nothing like this. When 2008 happened, it took a couple of years for example, in real estate, like short sales, people created huge businesses off of short sales, REOs. That took years to develop. It didn't happen the first year. It didn't happen in 08. It didn't happen in 09. 2010, 2011, 2012, you had these massive businesses grow. People got wiped out for years before people saw the upside. This is something different, man. I've never seen anything like this. I tell my team, the ground is shifting beneath our feet. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable and take it day by day, adapt, and also trust your instincts. What are you seeing in the local market? Because I remember this was April, late March, early April, people saying the sky's falling, this is awful. And there were some awful things happening in March and April. But we were seeing people coming in and asking us for services. And I'm like, well, people need us. So yes, real estate is in the toilet. It was shut down in several states. But I've never had so many people reaching out, needing help from us, right? So I'm like, well, I'm going to trust my gut and go, I'm going to trust what I'm seeing in the marketplace. And I'm going to double down on my company, right? We went 100% virtual, for example, right? We didn't shut down. They were going to shut us down eventually. But say, let's go 100% virtual. That was hard to do, but we did it within a couple of weeks. Boom. So one restriction removed, and we were able to go all in on the demand and the need that we were seeing in the market. If I would have gotten scared and kind of held back and not wanted to invest because, hey, man, this could go away tomorrow. Well, it can go away tomorrow. That's the reality. You have a choice. Are you going to trust your gut and kind of go with what you're seeing? Or are you going to be scared and kind of pull back because of, I don't know, you watch the news all day. So I think you got to kind of be conscious of those things. Trust your instincts. Trust that you know the market, your local market, and you're seeing what's happening and react to that and adapt to that. Don't get caught up on Twitter, cable news, headlines. Don't do that. For your own mental health. Forget business-wise. For your own mental health, don't do that. But really, really, really pay attention to what you're seeing because it can be contradictory to the doom and gloom that you're hearing everywhere.
No, I mean, I think that's a perfect kind of ending point to just focus on. It's like, do you and try not to focus too much on the noise because it's noisy and distracting. Well, Gus, hey, how do we connect with you? Where do we find you? Where are you at? How do we get on your newsletter, et cetera?
Yeah, the best way is my website, powerisa.com. It's all one single word. Or you can look me up on the Facebooks. I'm always on there. You actually probably instead of spelling my whole name, you just go PowerISA. It's probably the easiest way to find me. I post a lot on there. I have a Facebook group. I'd love to connect through that if people want to continue the conversation.
Awesome. Gus, well, thanks so much, man. Appreciate it. You guys, we'll have the information there in the show notes, obviously, so you guys can connect with Gus easily and just click instead of searching. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week. Hope you have a good one. Gus, thank you so much.